a lot of veterans will likely want to know what's going on, especially with their government, especially with the Canadian Armed Forces, and especially if they're committing, I have to say, alleged crimes, like straight up crimes. Last time we talked about the spy plane. For somebody that doesn't know what the spy plane is, what is this plane that we're talking about here?
It's a King, I believe it's called a King Air signals intelligence collection device that has wings and propellers, basically. So this thing flies over an area, scrapes the ground of all signals sending devices. So think about anything you have that's connected to the internet that can send or receive data, whether it's a computer, phone, tablet.
What did you start seeing that kind of threw up some alarm bells during this particular protest?
It started at the very end of January and took place for about 2.5 weeks into mid-February before they called in the Gestapo to come and stomp out a bunch of people serving hot dogs next to Bouncy Castle. Not long after I had visited, and I can't remember the exact time frame with which this happened, but I did receive a call from a colleague who informed me that my name had come up in a meeting amongst the intelligence apparatus, that I was at the demonstration. I was at the protest. I had been seen there. My name was mentioned. Captain Isted, part of the convoy or whatever capacity. And this person said to me, I'm not going to mention, please don't repeat this. I never told you this. How the fuck did they know I was there? I reached out through Access to Information and asked for information regarding CFNCIU's involvement within the convoy in terms of operations that they had on the ground in case there was any human assets. I want to know how that happened. I want to know why it happened. And I also want to know why and who authorized the 5 flights of this spy plane over top of the convoy.
Brian, welcome back, man. We need to finish up our conversation. So this is part 2, folks. If you haven't seen part 1, go check out the initial start of the conversation. But we'll summarize what we've already covered. We covered a lot of ground so far. We're looking at, is the Canadian Armed Forces spying on its own people? And Brian here has some interesting insights into that. And this might be the first time you're hearing it. So go back, get some more context from the first episode. We're going to carry on and delve a little bit deeper because he's got some new documentation, call it that, to shed some more light. And there's been some new revelations in the media that seems to be giving a lot more credibility to what Brian's talking about here. So Brian, welcome back, man, to part 2. How you doing?
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I just was on another show about an hour ago, a live show. They're like a veterans advocacy thing. So they're like, why do you do what you do? And I basically just said, they're like, you're an advocate for veterans. I go, I don't consider myself an advocate for veterans. I'm just curious and I like talking about things that interest me. And in this case, this is a topic that really interests me. And a lot of veterans will likely want to know what's going on, especially with their government, especially with the Canadian Armed Forces, and especially if they're committing, and dare I say, quote unquote, alleged, I have to say alleged, crimes, like straight up crimes, because I don't want to get sued. I don't have any money. So let's get into it. Last time we talked about the spy plane that, I guess I don't have to say allegedly because we know it did fly over the Freedom Convoy back in the day. Was that 2021, 2022?
22 is 5 flights. Important to reiterate that it happened before the Emergency Measures Act was put in place or enabled, or however you want to call it. But before that happened, 5 flights.
Okay, so for somebody that doesn't know what the spy plane is, what is this plane that we're talking about here?
It's a King, I believe it's called a King Air signals intelligence collection device that has wings and propellers, basically. So this thing flies over an area, scrapes the ground of all signals sending devices. So think about anything you have that's connected to the internet that can send or receive data, whether it's a computer, phone, tablet, any device, really, watch, anything that can send or receive data. This plane can ping it and scrape the information out of it.
That's wild. Hey there, Hard to Kill listeners. Today's episode is brought to you by Natesto. Did you know that only 5% of men get treated for low testosterone? Low testosterone is a serious health concern that is rarely discussed, especially in the veteran community. Toxic exposure, mild traumatic brain injuries, and terrible sleep habits can all contribute to a rock bottom total T-score. I want to help improve the health and fitness of the veteran community, and that's why I've partnered with Natesto. Talk to your doctor today and see if Natesto is the right solution for you. Let me fill you in, folks. I've written a new book. It's called Harden the Up. The book is 19 chapters of the best actionable intel on how to get yourself fit, healthy, and moving in the right direction to make yourself harder to kill. I get it. You might be on the fence. Why should I buy another book written by a veteran? Well, I'll tell you why. You want to be cool, right? Well, you're going to want to be like all the cool kids that are saying some really cool things about this book, like Dallas Alexander. He's pretty cool. General Thompson, former task force commander at Kandahar. Tony Chapman, Dr. Elliot Justin. Who else? Oh, Tim Jensen of Grunt Style. Not only did he think the book was cool, he thought it was so cool, he wrote the freaking foreword to the book. Ebook and audiobook drop on the 28th of November. On the 29th, you can get your paperback copy at Amazon. Be one of the first to get your hands on a copy of this amazing book and become harder to kill. Peace. Do you know, is this something that Canada has had in terms of capability for a long time?
No.
Or is this relatively new?
Well, maybe that's not fair of me to say. I'm not 100% sure, but I would say realistically no, because the purchase of these handful of planes that we now have happened in the last few years. What happened before I ended up in intelligence on the cyber files, I can't really speak to, but I don't think this technology is not that old. So I don't think we would have had these planes, because we bought old American equipment, which is kind of the SOP of how we get anything.
Okay.
Oh, you guys are done with that? Can we borrow that?
Can we have that? I know we don't get the parts anymore, but we'll figure it out.
It's like getting those used Levi's from your older brother, but which there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. And I'm not judging anybody who does that. That was me growing up. But yeah, like I don't, to answer your question, I don't think that I don't think that we've had these very long. But again, I never worked in 427, and I'm not sure, but I would say within the last few years.
Okay. I'm just, I've got an image here, and I think this is what we're talking about here. These bad boys here. So we got twin prop. It kind of looks like a small, like, private jet.
Yeah, it's not a big plane at all. I think it can hold maybe a handful of people. Signals, obviously a pilot, probably two. I would say a signals intelligence operator, like a comms researcher trade would be the specific trade that they would be under, and maybe some type of signaler or someone who operates radio or transmissions equipment. I don't know. But the people in question that I would love to talk to, that I would hope would come forward in one capacity or another under some kind of whistleblower protection, would be the pilot and the comms researcher who was on this plane, because they will know exactly what happened.
Right. Yeah. So essentially what's being alleged here is that this plane scraped everybody's data at the trucker convoy. So that includes phone numbers, that includes passwords, that includes like anything that is literally on your phone. They're picking that up and you have no idea, right? Like that's the nature of this tech.
Yeah, there's no way to know for the layperson. I'm sure there's super savvy tech people out there who may be able to detect some kind of interception.
Yep.
From this plane, I'm not sure. I'm sure that capability exists. I can't speak to it because I don't know. But for the average person, you or I, or 99.9% of the people that were on the ground of the convoy or anywhere in that area, would not know that their device has been compromised. There's no way to know.
That's so wild, man. I mean, I had a device that I walked around with because the comms guys or the signals intelligence guys were like, "Hey, you go in the field every day, like you're on patrol in Afghanistan every day." I'm like, "Uh-huh." They're like, "Can you walk around with this one device? Just please don't lose it." It's like, "Sure. What do you need me to do?" They're like, "Literally just walk around with it, man." I'm like, "Okay, what am I doing?" They're like, "You're picking up the IMEI numbers." I'm like, "Oh." I'm like, "You can just." I'm like, "When was the phone's off?" No, it doesn't matter. I'm like, oh, they're like, you just have to get within like a few feet. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, so what does that mean? They're like, well, we can just get into anybody's phone. I'm like, so like nobody's phone is secure even if it's off. They're like, nope. I'm like, holy shit, that's insane, man. So this plane can just do that on like a massive scale and collect all that data. Now, the question is like, A, why? And then B, who approved it? So you asked for some information, so access to information, and that's kind of where we last left off. What's the new development on your side with the access to information request?
So my ATIP was furnished with communications from basically CanSoft HQ and the enablers and the the public affairs officers. So the people who sort of front face the media on behalf of the military were sort of trying to get their response to media inquiries and have their ducks in a row so everybody could tell the same story. So that's the email traffic that was mostly furnished within this ATIP that I got to see. So they actually did finally provide me something almost a year after I asked what was going on. Because again, everything's alleged. I don't know anything for sure. I just want to reiterate that in terms of
alleged. This is all allegedly.
In terms of alleged behavior of alleged capabilities and alleged technology.
We're good. We said the safe word.
I don't know anything for sure, but here's what I do know of what was provided to me. That originally, when the news articles started coming out in 2022, that some savvy civilians had been watching air traffic over Ottawa and had noticed these planes that were had location transponders turned off, whose tail numbers were not easily recognizable and turned out belonging to the military. So the part where this gets super suspicious to me, where I'm wondering why they went with this narrative or this knee-jerk reaction to begin with, because when the email traffic of this ATIP of these PAOs talking to one another, to these ops people, to the CanSoft people, and back and forth, they wanted to know, what are we going to tell these journalists, because they're asking whose planes those were. After digging through more than 100 pages of emails of trying to figure out what was going on back there, the original response from 427 was this was not their plane. So their immediate response back was that we have no idea what you're talking about. This doesn't belong to us. And that's the message they tried to pass back to the media, until somebody savvy enough realized that, like, no, that doesn't make sense. Please tell us what's going on here. And then they changed their story conveniently to, this was a training mission. And for all I know, it was a training mission, and allegedly nothing happened, and no technology was turned on at all, and nobody's information was compromised whatsoever. So I do find it troubling and somewhat alarming that the original reaction for something as harmless as a training mission was that we didn't do this at all. So
yeah,
either
doesn't pass the sniff test, man. Doesn't pass the sniff test.
Either somebody was really unaware of what was going on that worked within 427 ops, who was sort of blissfully unaware, passing information back to a PAO and had no idea what was going on, which is, again, possible, maybe, but it seems like, you know what I mean, after the last 4 years, almost 5, of people kind of starting to wake up, it seems like they were hiding something that they didn't want to get out, realized that it was kind of too late. People were asking questions, and then changed their tune to make it something a little more easily digestible that doesn't reek of illegal search and seizure, allegedly.
Right. Yeah, that's the allegation. Yeah, that, I mean, I'm like, look, I just put up there's articles in every MSN newspaper online, right, about this. This is not you going out and like putting a tinfoil hat on, being like, oh my God, they're flying spy planes over us. It literally happened. They've acknowledged it, but like you said, it doesn't pass a sniff test, man. Oh, we're just doing a training operation. Well, then why'd you lie about it first? That's a good point. It's fair. It's fair. Like, it's like when you get an argument with your wife and she already knows the answer, and then she gets you into a lie, and then she's like, oh, really? She's like, well, then what about this? And you're like, man, you knew the answer already, didn't you? Damn it. Okay. You got me. So it doesn't look good. But then, now we're going into speculation now. Okay. Why? Like what would be, because it says in the article, oh, it was just a coincidence that it was during the protest. It wasn't to like surveil the protest.
So I did get a little bit more information also from the ATIP. So apparently the flights were conducted mostly over southern Ottawa, southwestern Ottawa, far away from the convoy. But there was, again, I'm not 100% sure on this, but this is my takeaway from what I was able to read and sort of and deconflict from the stories back and forth, that the plane did make a specific flyover of the downtown area each time, or at least the majority of the times. It's not entirely clear what the flight path was. I don't think I'll ever know unless someone comes out and starts talking about it. But the plane leaves Petawawa, flies over southwestern Ottawa, far away from the convoy at the time, or at least Parliament or that area of like the market and kind of surrounding area along Sussex and Rideau there. But for some reason, it diverted from that area and then made a direct pass over the convoy each time. So that's, again, odd that its transponders turned off. It is not collecting any signals information. These are training flights to get pilots their hours and people on board doing their thing. They've got to do their job too, and they have to practice how to do it. So fair enough. But why did it have to divert a signals collection device over top of a convoy, apparently many, many kilometers outside of its sort of area of operations for this training? It just, every way that you analyze this is more and more suspicious of this alleged behavior. And I really, really hope someone will grow a pair and step forward and sort of shed some light on this, because there's so many questions as to how sketchy this was. And you mentioned it in the intro, asked for this.
Yeah.
This wasn't some pilot all of a sudden saying, hey, I would really like to get a view of Parliament building from 2,000 feet or whatever, 5,000 feet. Somebody asked for this to happen, and this guy followed a direction.
Of course.
And again, fair enough. You know what I mean? But who asked? And why did they ask? And why did they try to say that it never happened in the first place? Like, where's the accountability here? And I'm just mind blown, because the other ATIP that I chatted about, I think before briefly, is still being blocked. I don't have any fidelity on what CFNCIU was doing, Canadian Forces National Counterintelligence Unit was doing on the ground during the convoy, doing hopefully their job, trying to collect, I guess, information on what Canadian Forces members were doing as a part of a peaceful rally, whether or not you want to believe mainstream media's perception of it. But anyone who was anywhere near there, spent any time on the ground there, either walking to work, walking home, whatever, getting a hot dog, there was nothing going on there outside of probably a few people that got a little too drunk and rambunctious, and you deal with those people individually. But why was CFNCIU on the ground collecting there? Why were they operational on Canadian? I have so many questions, and I have no answers because they're blocking the ATIP.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're right in your assessment that there's going to be a need for folks to come forward. But you mentioned whistleblowers and protection for whistleblowers. I don't think we have any enshrined in law here. I don't think it's like in the United States. I think they're taking a substantial risk to go out, and I'm speculating here, but I don't think we have the same kind of protections, but I could be wrong.
I think you're right. There are some protections. I don't have anything in front of me. I can't quote exactly what they are, but I know that there are some protections for Canadians that exist. I couldn't tell you exactly how the exact sort of scope or scale of it, but you're right in the fact that we don't have something that equals what the US has.
So I'm just actually pulling up something from, because this came up in my friend's case actually against Ottawa Police about whistleblowing. So on opencanada.ca, there's enacting whistleblower protection. And the problem is Canada's current legal framework for whistleblowing is outdated and out of step with internationally recognized best practices. So there you go. Surprise, surprise. We're laggards. The most serious deficiencies are lack of protection for public sector whistleblowers and at a federal or provincial level. And two, an almost complete lack of coverage of the private sector. So there you go. Like we're right. Because I even think Trudeau got up in Parliament and was like pissed off that there was like whistleblowers for the foreign interference scandal, that there would be like a whistleblower from CSIS. Well, yeah, their job is to protect the country, bro. And there's freaking like wolves and freaking foxes and every other predator in the hen house right now. So like if they don't get listened to in the formal channels, I think it's their responsibility to go and whistleblow. I that's just my perception. Like that's how I view things. If you don't do it, you're being negligent. So my curiosity, and maybe the folks listening too are probably have the same curiosity too, is like, why do you want to put yourself out there? Because you don't have to. Like this could have some blowback on you talking about this.
Are you talking to me specifically?
Yeah, you specifically. Like why do you feel that you need to discuss this on a show, because you feel it's like so important that it actually needs some coverage?
So full disclosure, we already knew this. I believe we talked about this last time. I'm part of the lawsuit against the CAF for breach of abuse of power.
Yes.
To do with the mandate. So once I likely was injured from the vaccine, and my career basically was over medically, I started asking even more questions, and I dove into last time all the questions I had when I was working in analysis and wondering why there was no pushback or why we were just kind of towing the line. That's a good question though, man. And I'll try not to give you an obtuse answer that's too long or drawn out. But
you're not a politician, man. So
yeah, exactly.
It'll be fine. It'll be
no
fine.
Kidding. I want answers. Like the reason I'm doing this is because I've achieved this level of, I guess, comfort in terms of being medically released. So I have the benefit of that a lot of people that were kicked out over the mandates didn't get. So I'm part of the lawsuit. I'm looking for accountability. I want answers. I want to know why senior leadership turned their back on the country, on their own troops, at the behest of allegedly the PMO, the Prime Minister's office, or some combination of senior ministerial people looking to silence everybody. And it just comes back to this nonstop agenda of censorship that we've been living under for 4 years, where if you don't say the approved thing, or you even have critical thinking skills to ask questions, you're called a crazy person, or you're told that, you know what I mean, to stop asking questions to begin with. Like, why aren't you going along with this? And I had a problem with it from the start, seeing the way that we reacted to it from 2020 onward, where, again, super senior people talking to me privately in conversations saying what we're doing makes no sense, and then having zero pushback to it when it came to informing even more senior leadership of the way forward, or where the information was coming from, or what it meant. And it was just all bullshit. It was smoke and mirrors to keep people locked in their homes while they benefited from being on lockdown. If they work for the federal government in Ottawa, which is a tremendous amount of people do. Yes. And they never had to worry about where their next rent check was coming from. Nope. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm looking for accountability. I want to say something because I feel like I have the time and space to do so. And I'm hoping to inspire other people to do the same, because this has gone on way too long now. Nobody's been accountable for what they've done. Nobody's lost their job. Nobody's been demoted. Nobody's been even remotely held to account for what they did, and what is still going on to some degree in some parts of the country and the federal government. Like you still have to get vaccinated to deploy.
Yeah, that's insane. I know.
This is mental. I know. This is mental. Like, we're going to keep pretending that this thing still works or offers any kind of protection or matters at all. We're going to keep pretending so that it looks like the decision we made was the right one. It's insane. Yeah,
it's doubling down on your retardation. Like, it's just like you're like, this was retarded, but you know what? We're going to make it triply retarded. It doesn't make any sense. It's consistently doubling down on things that are hurting people, which makes no sense. The only thing that I can, like, this is my theory, right? And we can start going off into the into the weeds on this one. With what's happening now in the news, we're seeing, and this has been going on for a while, but it's like the levee is breaking on foreign interference. In my opinion, I think that is we're just starting to get the first glimpses as to who was influencing us at the highest levels. And if you have influence from foreign actors that want you to go in a certain direction on a major policy, how do you know they weren't how do you know we weren't propagating a Chinese talking point or a Russian talking point while they're saying the ones that are questioning it, we're the ones that are the Russian agents. We're the ones. Like, that is literally out of Marx's playbook. He says, go ahead and start criticizing your enemies about the things that you're doing so that they get completely confused and bamboozled, because you go, wait, we're not doing that. You're doing that. But that is part of the deceptive nature of his ideology. So I'm starting to think, and we just saw it like in the news here, like we have 3 individuals that have been identified by a reporter as having either direct or indirect contact with the Chinese. We've also got legal action now, another ATIP about that wolves incident that happened in 2020 in Nova Scotia. And that was kind of dismissed and swept under the rug, but it looks like that is a really deep-rooted thing that's been going on within the CAF, that they're spying on us when they should be spying on foreign actors and protecting us from their influence. And I'm kind of at a point now where it's like, well, how do we trust anybody in any form of government if we haven't rooted out the potential influence from the Chinese, the Russians, the Indians? It seems like everybody can come play in our backyard and there's nobody looking at that. It's only guys like us that dare speak up. Like, what's going on, man? Like, it seems like this is a pattern. Like, we've even seen it during like the COVID pandemic. They were outed for doing a psychological operation against Canadians. Like, there's a pattern here. So like, I don't know, what's your take on that, man? You think I'm like way out in left field on on that idea?
No, I don't at all. I don't think there's some grand cabal of, well, first I'll say that I don't think that what I saw was indicative of a coherent enough group of people who are, you know what I mean, administratively or even just competent enough to pull off some type of grand cabal scheme. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think that's realistic. But what I do think did start happening as a means of sort of capitalizing on the situation was, once everything started to go sideways in 2020, or you could argue late 2019, as I laid out that timeline last time we chatted, they kind of started realizing that this was now the opportunity to start doing things that maybe they may never. I would like to think that this was not something the Canadian military has always done, or the senior leadership of the federal government or provincial, whoever, municipal, has always done. I think this is something new. And I think they realized that there was kind of an opportunity that they could capitalize on. And there's enough smoke and mirrors to just throw some type of distraction device once you're getting asked about what happened, that you say, oh, it's disinformation. It's the standard line that you just get fed. Mm-hmm. You're part of Russian disinformation. You're spreading Russian propaganda. This is Chinese influence, or whatever the talking line is that, you know what I mean, gets pushed to, again, accuse the person of doing the thing exactly that you're doing to cause more distraction and sort of a line of breadcrumbs that goes nowhere. But I don't know, like, it's super disturbing. I think they just capitalized on something that was going on where they knew they could sort of extend their reach and start doing things that were quasi-legal and or sort of gray area of legal.
Yeah.
And there's never been any accountability. So what would prevent them from doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I know you're trying to get to the bottom of like, why? Because that's always my biggest question. It's like, why and who? And like, what's your motivation? Like, money, power, all these things always come into play, right? They're the big motivators. But to do something on such a grand scale, just the individual that authorized the plane to go up in the air, let's say that individual was following orders as well. Like, how many chains?
Oh, absolutely, they were.
So like, but then it always has to come down to is like, man, if you're giving an order that requires spying on the entire group of Canadians, if you're at that level, you're going to tell, and there's no way out of this. if you don't know that that's breaking the law, then you shouldn't be in that position, because then you're completely incompetent. But then that means on the other side of that coin, you have to know that you're breaking the law. So that means what you're doing has to have a much bigger purpose than if you got found out. What is that purpose? Like, why would you go and risk your entire career for something as big as that? It has to be that the scales have to balance out. You wouldn't do it if it was all risk and no benefit. So it's always troubling to ask those questions, because, like for me, the biggest one was, okay, why did AIR decide to go ahead with a mandate? Because even his own Surgeon General, I read the briefing note, said, hey, COA 1, 2, 3, basically don't do it. We don't really have a need to. Most of the forces already took it, and it would just cause a legal shitstorm. So how about we just do the option where it's like, if they want to deploy, they might need it, but everything else, like, they'll just be fine. And he signed off. He said, yeah, that's a great idea. But then he went back on his decision and decided, no, let's go do it. I was like, well, why would he do that? Like, why would he put his own soldiers at risk? Because they'd even said in the document that we don't know the long-term effects. We could be putting their health at risk. And I was like, I don't understand. And like, the simplest answer was like, well, he got promoted. I was like, what? Are you serious? That's all it took? A promotion? Like, that's it? Because I often want a big grand scheme, right? Like, oh, he's part of like the WEF. He's going to get a position. No, it was just, hey, well,
Klaus texted him.
Yeah, you will do the mandate, yeah? It's like, oh yeah, I got it. Yeah, Klaus, yeah, let's do it. But no, apparently it was just like, you can't ever know what's going on in somebody's head. But I mean, his actions, speak very loudly that clearly for him, like, he wanted the position, he wanted the promotion, and then I don't know, what does he want to do after? Like, I can't see that guy walking around with his head high, but I don't know. I don't know the guy. So, there's a lot of people that got a lot of animosity towards him.
Severe delusion.
Yeah, because I don't know anybody with severe, and I'm not delusional. So I don't know anybody in that position to have any interaction with them. But like, is that it? Like, do you just think that, no, I did a great job. I did a great job. I crushed it.
Just remember the immortal words of George Costanza. It's not a lie if you believe it.
If you believe the lie.
Do you know what I mean? So I think I agree with everything you just said. I think it's going to be interesting at minimum to see where AIR ends up in the next few years. Like, let's see what job he ends up rolling into at the UN with NATO, whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. We'll see. And then it'll be like, oh, now it kind of makes sense. But I think it's as simple as what you just said. And I think it's Phil Miller, the lawyer who I've watched a handful of times speak about stuff like this. I think he nailed it. There's a certain degree of pathetic cowardice that exists among sycophants who just want to be seen around powerful people. They want to spend time around powerful people. I was a bodyguard for a very wealthy family for a good amount of time. And I got to see firsthand the way that people act and react around people of certain power, influence, status, wealth. And the whole thing is often gross. And I'm not saying that people of status or power or wealth or whatever are gross people. What I'm saying is there is a level of sycophant that goes on by the handlers or by the people that surround them that's truly disturbing. Again, there's lots of great people around. Some of them are my friends to this day, and I'll work with them in the future if whatever comes up. But it's like, it oftentimes, what is it, Occam's razor? The simplest solution is often the right solution. So if you think about what you just said, promotion, clout, status, CDS, rank, like, you get all this title, you get to have your name in the paper, you get to shake hands with these ministers, and you get to achieve the thing maybe you thought you could never achieve, and now you're so cool. It's probably some combination of those things. Do you know what I mean? So I agree with you on that. That's probably what this was, at a severe cost to the Canadian forces. We'll never really know how much, probably for another 5 or 10 years.
Right. Until there's like a genuine, what's our highest level of investigation? Is it a royal commission? Is it, or
within the forces?
No, within Canada. Is it royal? Is the inquiry, like, there's different levels of inquiry, right? whatever the highest one is. And
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, that's a question for Catherine Christensen. She's my resident like constitutional expert that I'm getting an education from. So the other countries have done it. Like Australia's done it. The British have done it. Like all the nonsense that like because you need to have a watershed moment, kind of like a moment where you go, okay, whoa, we all screwed up here. This can't happen again. And at least they're doing it. We had this like show Bobo, and it wasn't an inquiry. We had something here, and it was so inconsequential that I don't even know the name of it relating to like COVID, right? But this is the stuff that needs to be looked at. And like you said, yeah, 5 years is probably a reasonable timeline, but it's Canadian, so it'll probably take 15 to get to the bottom of a lot of things and have impartial, for real, like judges and you know, lawyers and you know, advocacy groups actually look at the evidence, actually look at the timelines, actually look at the people that were involved and connect the dots and be like, holy crap, and look at the actual cost, both economically, but also in terms of like moral credibility. You know, like one of the best quotes I saw was early on during the pandemic, right? It was it the public health moves at the speed of trust. And it's like the amount of trust that's been built in the public health system took like 100+ years. And then the people that were pushing back, and the doctors and then researchers, they're saying like, hey man, like we need to be careful with what we're doing here, because if we lose the trust, it's gone, man. It's going to take like another 100 years, like 2 generations to get it back. But that's exactly what happened. Like I have zero trust in not only public health, I have zero trust in the military, I have zero trust in every federal institution. Maybe the post office, I got nothing against them. They're good to go. But like, I don't.
Poor posties.
Yeah, like I got no hate for them. You know, like
just faithfully delivering freight.
Like I get my mail, like I'm good.
Yeah.
But like I don't know if you feel the same way too. But like the breach of trust is a big deal. Everything in the West revolves around trust. Everything. When you see countries that don't have trust, it's all individualist, and they don't trust the police. They don't trust their government to like. They don't trust that the power will be on. So that you become very tribal and like you become feral. Like I saw it in obviously Afghanistan, but that's an extreme example. But like I was in South Africa. We were there for a month, you know, traveling. But it's not the same as here, man. I knew something went sour. I can't call the cops, man. They're not coming to just help me if I need help. Like objectively, they're gonna need a little side like mordita in Mexico. You know, you give them a little cash and they'll help you out. That's kind of troubling, but that's how a lot of the world works. I don't want us to get to that point where like the trust in everything just goes into the shitter. But I feel like this is what leads to it, is that the hubris, I guess, of the leaders that are above us think that they can do whatever they want with impunity. Spy on us,
that's
take
a really
all our
good,
shit.
If I can hop on sort of the momentum of what you just said, you said a few really interesting things there. So trust, public health, leadership, you know what I mean, structural failure, systemic problems. So I'm not going to call anyone out by name because I don't think that's necessary. But what I do want to talk about in terms of the military police branch specifically, as a good buddy of mine is going through some really tough days recently. He's had some serious health problems, as almost certainly as a result of his time in service as an operator, as a guy who was kind of tip of the spear for as long as he can. Great leader, great guy. I worked alongside him. He trained me many years ago as I was coming up as a junior officer. But the guy is getting no help at all from senior people within the military police branch as his health is falling apart. He's reaching out for, I'll give a little bit of context so it makes a little bit more sense. So he was a Reg Force guy for many years, left in 2020, became a reservist to do some business on to run a business on his own, which ended up not being a great option, seeing as the way the economy went. The timing was bad. So
bad timing for everything.
Yeah. So you can imagine how rough that would have been. But
unless he was in the mass business, but
as he was trying to make this work, his health started going south almost instantly. So since 2020, 2021-ish, he's been sort of operating on the periphery as I don't mean operating as in soft stuff. I mean operating as in he was doing his job as a reservist, helping out administratively because he's a smart dude and he knows how to get things done. And he was taking sort of contract to contract. But as his health got more and more deteriorated, he was able to handle less and less. Forgive me if I'm not accurate with that assessment, buddy, but this is just sort of my interpretation of what I've seen. He's really struggling. So he's been reaching out to the branch to try to get help medically from this public health system, like you said, that our trust is kind of diminishing in. And he's having trouble having any senior people within the branch return calls, return emails. His contract and pay has ended months ago. He's now kind of high and dry with his family, with a mortgage, with bills. And he's got almost no military resources left to stand on because people just are ignoring him, because I'm sure they're so busy at HQ trying to outfit the next colonel with his posting to Greece, or you know what I mean, like the same old pension padding nonsense where they look out for one another. And I'll give you a really good example of how that works. So I worked with a senior person within the military police branch, administrative officer. He was my sort of immediate supervisor. After I left and was sort of on my way out medically, I got wind from somebody within MPHQ that this person was now facing multiple charges of harassment, or let's say allegations of harassment. I don't think charge is the right word there, but allegations of harassment against them for their conduct among junior people that they were supposed to be mentoring and or responsible for sort of their professional development. So while this person received multiple harassment allegations, was able to retire out of the military quickly to sort of disappear and kind of make that go away, and then immediately get rehired as a senior level civilian so that they could double dip on their pension while still collecting a six-figure job while harassment investigations are being conducted. So the point that I'm trying to make is that there's definitely top cover provided for people who know how to play the game and they know how to make things go away conveniently, to cover up themselves, to cover up for their friends. Meanwhile, the people at the bottom end of the totem pole are not getting the help they need because it's sort of inconvenient to do so, or maybe it takes time out of their busy day, you know what I mean, to return an email to make sure someone gets looked after medically, financially, after they put in 20 something years in the military. Like, the whole thing is disturbing and disgusting, watching these people protect each other and while the people at the bottom just suffer. And you asked me several minutes ago, why am I doing this? Accountability. This needs to be talked about. People need to become accountable for what they've done to the military, for what they've done to people underneath them. And some of this trust can only be restored when people start owning mistakes. I've made so many mistakes during my career, I can't even count them. And I'm the first person to say that I've made that many mistakes. And you know what I mean? And I paid for every single one of them in one way or another, as embarrassing as it was to do things the wrong way, or to, heaven forbid, I made a decision that put someone in like literal physical danger. If I made a tactical error on the ground, which I definitely did more than once operationally. So it's like every time a mistake is made, you're taught as a junior officer to immediately own it, or it's just going to compound and get worse and no one's going to trust you. And not the only, but oftentimes the example that we see now is people making things go away. Let's not be accountable. We never made any mistakes during COVID. We never made any mistakes during this or that or whatever. Everything was the best information we had at the time. Science changed. It's all so unbelievably transparently pathetic and wrong that people just need to say, look, this is what we did. It was super wrong and messed up. We're never going to do it again without adequate information. We're going to stop protecting the people that did it and just literally live with some fidelity moving forward about how to handle this better. And the situation that some of my one buddy in particular is dealing with is just disgusting, man. He's such a good human being and leader that he not that anyone deserves this treatment, but especially someone that has just led by example and tried to help other people around them?
Yeah. I've talked about, the era of accountability, because I think that's ultimately where we're heading. And, I'm an eternal optimist. I don't care what the accountability looks like, even if it's just an apology, at least at a bare minimum, to be like, I screwed up. And you nailed it. At the junior officer level, at the NCO level, we're hammered, right? You make a mistake, it's like, yeah, okay, you screwed up. Don't let it happen again, but you got to own it. But it's like, as soon as you reach a certain level of leadership, it's like, yeah, but it doesn't really apply to you because you're too important here. We can't have you go down because you screwed up. And then it creates this culture of risk aversion, right? We have an entire military that's completely risk averse to do anything dangerous, even though our job is literally supposed to be the most dangerous the country has. And it creates this weird dynamic, man. And that's all I can like put my finger on. Like, we've got a very weird culture here. And I don't even know how to define Canadian culture. From the outside, it's like, oh, you guys are so nice. I think that's the worst statement that could be made against a group of people. It's like, you guys are nice. Like, that to me, like, reeks of just being pathetic. Like, we're nice. Dude, I don't want to be with nice people. I want to be with kind people. Nice people don't say what they mean. Nice people aren't honest. They're nice because they feel like they have to be nice to you. And that's like, and I'm not saying this from a soapbox. I'm totally guilty of this, right? I won't say what's on my mind. I'll say what I think needs to be said to kind of make sure we don't rock the boat. And I think that's a typical Canadian thing. And then, what's more Canadian than the military, right? You get this subsection of people that like want to serve, and like, it's typically the same people over and over again. And I think culturally we've got a lot of issues, man. And I think the military just exemplifies exactly what's going wrong here. We don't accept accountability once we reach a certain level. And then we pretend things don't exist when they're really bad. Like, we just hide behind policy. We hide behind, legislation. And then we're just cowards, man. We're just freaking cowards. Meanwhile, the folks on the ground, they're like, our military, like, we're feared, we're revered on the ground. But then you go up a few echelons and it's just, I don't know, man.
We have the most top-heavy military per capita of any forces, and it's by significant margin in terms of how many people we have and how many senior leaders we have. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense financially. It doesn't make sense in terms of an org chart. It's out of control. And this is what
it's just a bureaucracy. That's it. It's just a straight up 100% bureaucracy that, Trudeau 1.0 basically wanted to implement, so that it just cuts you off the knees when you have just a purely bureaucratic military, because then you start interacting like a bureaucrat, when in reality you're supposed to be warriors and everybody's supposed to support the warrior. There's none of that. Like, let's be honest, there's none of that. Like, your buddy, like,
yes, and so I'll push back a little bit. I do think that there are still a lot of people there that are there for the right reasons in most of the junior positions. Agreed. Senior positions as well, but I didn't interact with as many of them because I spent most of my time trying to hang out with the senior NCOs and people that I thought I could learn from. And I really wanted to be a line officer for most of my career, my entire career, if I would have been able to pull it off. Yeah. But there's still a lot of folks there who are very bright, who have the right intentions, who have the right ambitions. And they're just so nauseatingly disgusted with what they see that they're fleeing faster than they can be brought back in, hence retention problems. So I would like to see, again, people come forward and just own what they did and why they did it. Like, when you have someone like the CDS on his way out saying things like, if you don't believe in our DEI hiring strategy, then you're a Russian asset. Can't fathom where this is coming from, other than some type of drastic attempt to save face in, like, it's like you're in a burning building running around telling everybody that the building's not on fire. Stop believing it's on fire. If you say it's on fire, you're a Russian asset. You know what I mean? Well, maybe just look around and everybody's getting burned. You know what I mean? And it doesn't make sense. And then we promote someone to CDS, which is almost certainly done for optics reasons. I've never worked with this person. I can't say one thing or another about this person personally, but I can say that folks close to me have told me that She was not very well liked and not well respected amongst senior leadership of the Canadian Forces. I'll put it that way. But here we go. The person who orchestrated the DEI agenda, basically, within the military, or at least had a severe hand in doing so, gets promoted to CDS. Well, that's shocking. I'm shocked to hear that. You know what I mean? So we're going to carry on this trajectory until the entire house is burned down. And then we're going to step out and look back and say, oh, wow, maybe it was on fire. Holy cow. Now we need to build a new house. When we probably could have just put the fire out and, you know what I mean, limited the damage.
Yep.
But no, the house is going to go down and there's a lot of people that are going to get burned along the way. And here we go, buckle up.
Well, I was going to say, what are your final thoughts? But
don't sugarcoat it, man. How do you really feel?
You know what, man? The military raised me, essentially. And when a young man goes into the next phase, like then leaves the house, like you look for your second father. And that was the military for me, man. If it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have been where I am today. Like I developed myself there. So I have a strong affinity towards it. And that's kind of what motivates me to do this kind of stuff, because it's like seeing a family member sick or fucked up. You don't want to say, fuck you, do it on your own. You're like, man, okay, well, these are the things that are going wrong. We need to fix those things. Why aren't you fixing those things? That's how I see it. And I'm hoping that, like what you're saying, there's enough good people that hopefully stay on and it doesn't burn completely to the ground. But on the other side of that coin, I don't see any salvation, man. I'll be honest. I can't see how you go from this big of a deficit, like the inertia to get things back, to even just a normal fighting force that is fully staffed with like equipment, gear, bullets, everything like that. Is going to take such a monumental effort. I don't think it can be done within our current government structure. It would honestly take a massive world war and or a dictator. Because, like, let's be honest, how do you get all the equipment procured? How do you get like 30,000 more people into the military just like that? How do you train all the people? I don't know, man. Once you lose it, you lose it. So that's my big concern. And that's my big concern for the future of being a Canadian, and big concern for my family. Like, I want to know that there's some like badass fucking people that are standing on the wall so that I can go to sleep at night. There are. Like, I know there are, but is there enough? You know what I mean? Like,
that's a good question.
And we're getting into the geopolitical here, but essentially, I see Canada as like the richest country in the world, man. We've got literally everything here in terms of building blocks, in terms of just the raw materials, and then the people. We've got like infinite possibility here. But how do we screw it up so badly? Like how this is obviously a rhetorical question. How are we screwing it up so badly? And the military is just what I know and what you know. So that's like the frame I'm and the lens I'm looking at things from. But it just seems so insane that we can cock it up to this point that we're talking about, well, maybe we just let the whole military just disintegrate. Like this is a crazy conversation we're having right now, because I don't even know what it means. What does it even mean to build it back up? How do you build it back up if you still have the same people? I don't know. These are big existential questions. So I think we at least started the first steps. First steps. And Brian, if you have a role in the rebuild, I'll support your effort, man.
Sure. I don't know what kind of role I'd have.
Brian for CDS. I'm calling it Brian for CDS.
Oh my God, that would be the worst decision ever.
That's why you'd be the good fit. That's why you'd be the good fit.
Both of these podcasts trying to explain that I'm not good as a staff officer and I don't understand.
Exactly. It's like it's the Costanza principle. If everything you were doing is wrong, that means the opposite of everything has to be right. Like we just went right back. We went right back to Costanza's philosophy.
In one pod. I do want to say one last thing quickly, just to air my last grievance here, as maybe it is Festivus here for the rest of us. So
for the rest of us,
I'll air my last grievance here. That Jordan Peterson had a podcast, I want to say maybe 2 months ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, maybe 3 months ago now, where he had on some former senior leadership from the military. They went on basically to give sort of a soft recruitment ad for the Canadian military, saying, here are the things that are going wrong with it in terms of the wokeness. And then basically continuing on to say, oh, but I really think the new CDS has the potential to do a lot of good. And it was like, you were given the loudest microphone, one of the loudest microphones in the world, almost quite literally, being on a podcast with someone who generates tens of millions of views.
Oh, yeah.
And you use this time to talk about how you really think that the new CDS is going to step up and do the right thing, given the track record that we've seen from this individual over the last 5, 6, 7 years. What the fuck were you thinking is my question. Again, maybe I'm missing something because I'm just a junior officer, retired, you know what I mean, medically, and I never went to staff college and I never did AOC and I don't understand the big picture of things. But it's like, maybe it's simpler than that. And maybe people just need to not be in positions where they're just putting a DEI PC agenda at the front of everything. Like, how about grow a pair, say the thing that's uncomfortable on a huge microphone, get people talking, inspire others to come out and say something and do the right thing. But after watching that 90-minute conversation with JP and some senior leadership, I couldn't have been more disappointed in the fact that they said almost nothing. It was a soft recruitment campaign for the CAF, which, okay, in fairness, I guess that's needed right now, but that shouldn't have been the purpose, in my opinion, of why you were there. And you should have said a hell of a lot more about the structural problems, inefficiencies, bureaucracy, corruption, collusion that's actually going on from the top down. And instead you turned it into, well, I really hope that the new CDS turns this around and they see the error of their ways. But like, there's been no indication that anyone's going to do any of that. No. They're, like you said, there's a double down, triple down, quadruple down on, if you don't agree with what we're doing, you're a Russian asset. I'm speechless, man. I'm speechless. Yeah. I know I'm not speechless because I just talked for a long time, but like now that I've aired all my grievances, I'm actually speechless.
Yeah. Well, we can wrap up on that. And to comment on the Jordan Peterson interview, I had the exact same feeling. And at base level, they're all friends. They're friends. So yeah, they were quasi critical, but if you look at it from a business perspective, Carrie now shit the bed with her new department. And I can quote what was in the paper about her poll of 6,000 troops as to like, what do you guys want? Which is a great way to start as a leader. Hey, I want to know my people. Cool. What is the biggest issue for you as a soldier? And it was clear as day. We need a mission. Plain and simple. She completely ignored it. The other thing was, what is it to be a warrior? Like, can we define like the Canadian warrior ethos?
It's tampons in the men's bathroom.
So there you go. So if she was in charge of culture change and all that shit, which was, it was intended to improve recruiting, and you looked at it as a CEO looking at your company and being like, hey, you're in charge of recruitment. How come recruitment's down and everybody's fucking leaving? Sorry, but you know what? You sucked at this job. You're not getting promoted. You're gone. You
sound
failed.
Like a Russian asset, dude.
Well, you know what? I'll start working on my Russian, and hopefully I'll get my rubles any week now. But until that happens,
you're objecting the thing that continues to not work over and over again. But maybe if we just keep going, it will. What's the definition of
insanity?
Mental illness. If you repeat the same behavior, expecting different results.
Yeah. And so that's what they missed completely. They talked about the things that are already in the newspaper, like DEI, and it's not working. The tropes are, but who's in charge of the DEI thing? She was. So anyways, I'm sure I'm going to get some sort of pushback on this, and maybe some more allegations of me working for the Russians. And bring it on, Wayne. I think Wayner, allegedly he's taking a woodworking course. That's part of his like transition program. But,
okay.
That's neither here nor there. I get some stuff through the interwebs, and I can't confirm if it's him or not, but it sure as hell looked like him. But you know what? Maybe that's his second career. Maybe he's not going to go work for Klaus. Maybe he's just going to do some cabinets. And who knows? We'll see him on Canadian Veteran Marketplace selling his wares. But until that happens, I appreciate you coming back on the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me, man.
This is a cool conversation.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man. Same here. And whenever you have more in terms of juicy information that rocks the underpinning of our democracy, please, by all means, come here and speak into the void until somebody finally listens and clues in. But
everything I said was alleged.
Yes, yeah, of course. We're just spitballing. Hey, we're just two guys on a mic speaking into the internet. That's it. That's all we're doing here. It's not a crime as of yet, and I'm going to keep on doing it until either the Russians or the Canadians come take me in the middle of the night. Whoever it is, I don't know, but that's it. I think we covered a lot of ground here. So thanks again.
It's been my pleasure,
Halloween,
sir.
man. Yeah, enjoy your Halloween, man. Enjoy your Halloween.
Thank you.
All right, folks. That's it from us. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. And don't forget, train hard, fight easy. See you on Thursdays at 2 p.m. when we go live, which is what I'm going to do right now. And see you on the next one. Peace.